I am getting ready to go to the farmer's market. I went last weekend for the first time this whole season, and I went specifically to get corn and those, my favorite hot peppers, the half-hots. And I started at the Pepper Lady's area. She's got this huge area, and I didn't see them. And so I went up and I asked her, do you have half-hots? And she said, no. And I said, oh no, did I miss them? And she said, we haven't even picked them yet. So she's supposed to have them today. So I'm super, super excited to go get those. And hopefully I'll have a huge bushel of them when I come home today. But this week was an incredibly busy week. And so what I decided to do was just do my things and try to knock out a whole bunch of stuff and not worry too much about setting up everything and introing everything. So I just kind of filmed, and I'm gonna take you through that. But it was a productive week. We did get a bunch done, and I'm glad because I also had my Azure pickup this week, and I have a big project in that to do too. So the upcoming week, along with the peppers, oh, the other thing I was gonna get at the farmer's market is corn. But I figured since I didn't get the peppers, and last weekend I processed other things, it was kind of a blessing that I didn't get the peppers. And so I figured, you know what, corn, they're gonna have corn for a while. It's a slow season for us this year because of the weather. So I'm gonna definitely get the peppers today if she has them, and probably the corn next weekend, but I'll confirm with the corn guys that their crop is still hanging on there nice and strong, and that I have at least another week for that, because there are some freeze drying things I wanna try with the corn. And of course get some preserved for corn eating throughout the year as well. I went out this morning to check the green stalk to see if the beans that I put in there are ready for harvest. And they are dry, but they're kind of soft. We've had some rain. So I'm hoping that the next couple days will be nice and dry, and I can get those beans picked and, you know, put away for seeds for next year. What a wild growing season this has been. Everything's out of the ordinary. I'm definitely gonna need to change before I go. It is cold. I have on shorts, and it is 55 degrees outside, which I found out when I went to check on the green beans. It is cold. It is still August. What the heck? I know I complained about it being too hot for most of the summer, but it is way too early to be 55 degrees in the morning. Way too early. And it's dark already when I wake up. What? It's too early for that. So I'm gonna brew some coffee, head to the farmer's market, and I'll meet you back here after I take you through my week. These are gonna go into the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 45 minutes. These are some of my Pisano tomatoes, which I probably won't grow again. They tend to be on the smaller side, not a whole lot of product for the effort. These, on the other hand, are Amish paste, and they are quite a bit bigger than the Pisanos. We do have just a little bit of some scarring from cracking because we did get quite a bit of rain. And tomatoes that get unevenly watered do tend to start to split. I am just gonna snip the tips off of these, cut these in half, and core them. You can really tell the difference between the Pisano and the Amish paste. So much bigger and juicier. This is gonna save so much room in my freezer. I usually end up with bags and multiple gallon-sized bags in my freezer with tomatoes that I end up processing in early fall, or sometimes even later. This is just going to make these reduce in size significantly and save me so much room. All right, those are all of the paste tomatoes that I had collected over the last couple of days. I have a couple bread and salt tomatoes here, so we're gonna get those on there as well. This is the first year I had grown these, and I did cut one for fresh eating and tried it that way just to see if I wanted to grow it again. And honestly, I was not all that impressed. I will try them again, maybe after a few days where they haven't had access to water or rain, to see if it concentrates their flavor flavor any better. And then I've got some Cherokee purples here as well. Now these ones are not as large as I thought that they would get. I thought that Cherokee purples were much larger, and that about filled this tray nicely. We have a bunch of cherry tomatoes to do too. Cherry tomatoes are so incredibly prolific, especially the yellow ones. I don't even care what variety they are. The yellow ones tend to be more prolific, more than I can just eat or use fresh. So we're gonna get those roasted as well. Now, most of the time I would like to add some olive oil when I roast, but I'm not gonna do that. We're gonna try it without it. I'll keep an eye on them, but I wanna be able to have the option to freeze dry this sauce. And if I add oil to it, it's just going to shorten the shelf life and add the risk of it going rancid. We're going to avoid that. And for these cherries, they are large and they will take a while to roast if I don't cut them down. This is the Chadwick cherry. It's one of my favorite cherries. It's very sweet, very prolific. It's a saladette size. I think it's perfect for adding to sauce or making a fresh pan sauce out of. Absolutely delicious. The yellow tomatoes, they will roast down fine without cutting. And those are the Berries Crazy Cherry tomatoes. And this is my second time roasting tomatoes this year. So I've already done a large pan full and put it into a Ziploc bag, and there is still plenty of space in that bag. I'm not gonna add any garlic or onions. That I will do later once I decide what to do with these. If I'm gonna freeze dry these, I can add as much garlic and onions as I want to, but until I know what I want to do with these, I'm leaving them just as they are. The oven is fully preheated and ready to go. I'm gonna put the larger pan on the bottom rack and the smaller pan just above that. And now, while these are roasting, we can move on to chore number 2. This is not one of my favorite chores to do at all. It's not hard to do, but it is a little bit time consuming and my hands get tired of ripping apart cardboard. But I have a shredder here. It's the Pen & Gear 16 sheet cross shredder, and it just goes through cardboard like butter. It works beautifully. Even extra thick cardboard, it can handle. And this is what I like to use to mulch my beds. I don't like bringing in stuff from, garden centers or outside my house, because that inevitably comes with things that you don't want in your garden. And seed that you buy at ag stores, you don't know if it's been sprayed with something, and it always has seeds in it. So I'm always pulling hay out of my beds when I use straw. This year, I did not have enough cardboard. Usually about this time of year, I just start piling it up for recycling, but I'm not going to do that this year. I'm going to keep and shred as much cardboard as possible so that the next time I grow, I will have plenty to use for mulch. This works beautifully. I just take off all of the tape and all of the labels and put it through the shredder. And I don't worry too much about the ink on regular cardboard. That's made with soy, so that's even organic friendly. I just don't do cardboard that is shiny or has a lot of different colors on it, like white cardboard with yellow and red colors and so forth. Other than that, this just goes in. And then once this gets so full that I can't even press it down anymore and it won't take any more cardboard, then I just pour it into a big box I have in the garage, and that's where I typically do my shredding, is in the garage. But it's dark out there, it's dirty out there, so I just brought the shredder inside, as well as my stash of cardboard. This was probably 2 months worth of cardboard and cardboard paper. The cardboard paper, I can usually go into any ag store and just ask for it. I can also get it from my Azure Standard driver. I love using this stuff because it's so easy to tear into pieces. It's just like the old style brown grocery store sacks. And then of course there's the cardboard, and this machine can handle it. I just have to keep stuffing it down so that it doesn't say that it's overloaded. Goes through it like butter, and I am well on my way now to making mulch for next season's garden. Been about 45 minutes with the tomatoes in the oven, so let's give them a check. It smells so good in here right now. I think they could probably use another 5 to 10 minutes. maybe even up to 15. They're pretty full trays. They have not yet deflated yet, especially the cherry tomatoes, so we're gonna let them go a little bit longer. 1 hour in the oven should be long enough, and I think these are done. They look incredible. They smell incredible. And now I just need to let these cool off. If I want to skin these, the skins will peel off so easy at this point. I don't think I'm going to. That's not going to be necessary because if I'm going to freeze dry these, I'll just use my Vitamix. Either way, I'll use my Vitamix and it will turn those skins into a smooth puree. But they do need to fully cool down before I can do anything with them. So they're going to sit here for about an hour before we come back and finish these off. This many tomatoes would have taken 2, if not 3 gallon Ziploc freezer bags. But I'm gonna get all of these into here, which I already have 1 full round of them in this bag. And I've just marked this 2025 roasted tomatoes. And this is gonna give me so much flexibility when I go to turn these into some sort of a tomato creation later in the year. Now these tomatoes I did go ahead and peel the skins off of. They're so easy at this stage, they just lift right off if that's what you would like to do. But as I mentioned, I'm not gonna worry about this. I mean, I'm doing it to show you how easy these peels come off, but you don't have to. But if you do, you can save them and you can dehydrate them or you can freeze dry them to make tomato powder, which you can then use as a spice or a seasoning blend. You can use it to make tomato puree, but I'm just gonna throw these. I mean, just look how easy those skins just peel right off. And these are gonna mash down. The bag is gonna have, look at me, I'm still peeling tomatoes. I don't have to do that. The bag is gonna have a lot of water content in it, and that's okay. You can strain that juice when you're ready to do something with the tomatoes. And you make that juice into tomato juice so that nothing goes to waste. But these are just going to deflate down to nothing. They are just so beautifully roasted. I don't know if I'll be able to fit the second pan in here with all those cherry tomatoes, but we'll see. And so you could pour the juice that's on the bottom of your baking sheet in here if you wanted to as well. I'll take off the skin that got really caramelized. That's going to be so delicious. This is just such an easy way to prep tomatoes for processing later. Normally I would core them, put them in a bag, freeze them. And again, I would have like 12 to 20 of these Ziploc bags in my freezer taking up precious space. And then I would have to defrost those bags and then slip the skins off before I started roasting the flesh. And we've already roasted this flesh. Well, at least we've started to. So this is going to cook so much faster, take up so much less space, and just simplify things. I can take this bag out. I can even cut away the bag from the frozen contents and then just put this in my countertop roasting oven, which is how I usually make my sauce, and cook them down, add whatever seasonings or flavorings. I'll probably add some garlic and onions to a baking sheet and get those roasted before I do that. That bag is pretty full. Oh, these smell so good. They're just so deflated and juicy and lovely. This is just so much easier. I mean, it is pretty easy to open up a bag, put a whole bunch of whole tomatoes in there after you core them, but then you're leaving yourself work for later. This way, there is no work for later. I am gonna need to start a second bag though, but instead of using 4 by now, I'm only gonna use about 1 1/3. You see how nicely those red cherry tomatoes roasted? The yellow ones did as well, but since they're not cut in half, you're not seeing everything that you're seeing with these red ones, but they are just as soft and pliable and roasted as the red ones. Now, if you have a hard time digesting seeds, if you have a high-speed blender like a Vitamix, those will pulverize the seeds, so that wouldn't be a problem. 1/3 of a bag, not bad. I'm gonna get these into my freezer. I think I'm gonna save this juice because I might want to do something with the juice. And I will get these 2 bags in the freezer, and I will just keep adding to these as the season progresses. We'll save some tomatoes for fresh eating, of course, but the bulk of them will go towards making and preserving something that we can enjoy in the off season. Not bad. I need to get these elderberries covered before the birds get them. This one is pretty well picked through right here. There's a nice cluster behind it. I mean, really, they're just everywhere. But I want to make sure that I cover some of these clusters to ensure we get some berries this year. This is Tulle, T-H-U-L-E. You get it at a fabric store, and it is just very fine netting that you can use to put over your plants in the garden. I mean, it's like wedding veil stuff, but perfect for use in the garden. So we are just going to cut. We can get this around the elderberries. And I have these little clips. These little office clips, and I think that those will work perfectly to secure these on. This is a nice cluster here. So let's see if we can get this covered and secured. And I'm just clipping the netting, not the stem, and let's see if that will stay. I've not done this before, but I think we're making do here. And there we have netted elderberries. Now hopefully they'll continue to ripen, no problem, but let's get a few more done. I may as well stay low, let the birds have the ones that are up high, make it easy on myself. So just wrapping the tool around and then pinching it where I can put one of these clips. Looks like these are just a tiny bit smaller than I should have cut them, but that one is now secure. This one's a little bit smaller of a cluster. That'll be easier to wrap. So one corner up, opposite corner up, and then bringing the other 2 corners up. And I'm twisting the tool here at the top and then securing just the tool, not the stem, with a clip. It's a bigger cluster, but I think I can wrap it in segments. So one corner of the tool up, twist, and pin the twist. It may not be the birds that have been getting these berries. Here's a little snail. Because I wouldn't think that they would be interested in berries that are not ripe. I just know that we are missing a bunch of berries. And I know that they got them last year, the birds did. So this is going to prevent that, I hope. I don't know how well it will prevent snails and slugs, but we'll see. I'm going to make some bigger squares too after I finish with these smaller ones because we're not easily getting all the berries. Yeah, bigger squares would definitely be better. This is the last small one I have. I'll cut more bigger to get more of these covered because there are clusters everywhere. Got some bigger pieces of netting for these larger clusters. Probably overkill. It gives them plenty of room and airflow. Might go back and change those smaller ones out too. Yeah, this looks good. This looks much roomier for them. Looks great. The clips are definitely making the branches heavier. So I'm gonna try to spread out what I am covering. Elderberries may be tiny, but they're packed with immune boosting power. And once harvested, you've got a few great ways to preserve them. You can freeze them raw, which would be perfect for future jam, pie, or even wine. And you can also freeze dry them for long-term storage. They'll last for years in Mylar bags, which will be great for future teas, powders, or syrups. Just remember that raw elderberries should always be cooked before eating. Elderberries are a little different from most fruits because they contain naturally occurring cyanogenic glycosides, especially in the seeds, stems, and leaves. And that's why you'll hear that raw elderberries can cause an upset stomach. And so most people recommend cooking them before eating or even processing them. And of course, you can go straight from picking to cooking them into syrups, jellies, or tinctures that are shelf stable and ready to use anytime. But whether they're frozen, freeze-dried, or simmered into something sweet, preserving them now means you'll have their benefits on hand long after the growing season is done. I'm very excited to finally be harvesting my first berries from these 3-year-old American elderberry bushes. I'm not yet 100% sure what I will turn these into, and I suppose part of that will depend on how many I get. Well, altogether, we got about 18 clusters tied up in nets. This is a beautiful cluster right here, but unfortunately the stem is broken right there. So we're not gonna bother with that one. Yeah, look at all that. We're definitely gonna have some berries to harvest this year. The birds will have some too. And we'll get to make some elderberry products. When I make something with eggs, other than dog food, usually when I make dog food with eggs, I crumble the shells into their food. But if I'm making people food eggs, I will save the eggshells, I'll rinse them off in the sink, pop them in the microwave for 2 to 3 minutes, just to kill off any bacteria that might be on them, let them cool down, and then we smash them over and over and over again into the jar until we just can't fit any more in here. And then it is definitely time to go into the Vitamix or another high-speed blender. Now, a trick when you're doing powders in the blender, especially if you have, like I do, the plastic piece, not metal, powders love to stick to plastics and it can be really hard to get them off. And that is especially true for this lid section up here. So a tip, what I like to do is I like to cover this before I put the lid on because I can easily get stuff off of parchment paper versus trying to dig it out of all the nooks and crannies inside the lid. So we're gonna put some shells in. We're gonna get it started. Again, I'm putting just a piece of parchment paper over the top just to keep all the powder from getting up underneath the lid. There's gonna be a whole lot of powder stuck to the inside of this container because it's plastic. And I gave this just a minute to settle down so calcium powder doesn't go flying. I don't know if you can see that. We've got some calcium powder. I don't want to get that up my nose. Not that it would hurt you, it's just unpleasant. Ask me how I know. I think I need to let it rest a little longer if I don't want any calcium powder. Whew. Is that visible? Can you see that? There's just a smoke of powder. It's like a witch's brew. Is that coming through? I think you can see that. Ugh. So I'm going to let that rest for a little while before we pour it into our storage container and get the rest of these blended down. right, it's been about 5 minutes. This has settled down nicely. I've got my jar of calcium powder from my shelf. There's still a little bit left in here, not a lot, but I do have one more full jar as well. So we're gonna add to this jar. Yeah, that has settled down. So good idea to let your powders sit before you pour them off. Now this is going to create more calcium dust, which I'm not thrilled about, but it's the only way I know how to do it. So I'm covering as much as I can with the parchment paper. And we're gonna let that sit while we blend up some more. This is a lot of eggshells. This is months worth of eggs that I just keep compressing and compressing and compressing. So we'll start with that. Oh, they were so compressed, they just fell right out. I was not expecting that. I had a spoon ready to go. Sometimes I have to dig them out. And clearly they were 100% dry. That's the other thing. You're not gonna be able to powder this if your eggshells are wet at all. So these get a good long sit before I process them. All right, let's see if we can borrow this again. Yes. We're gonna let this sit for about 5 minutes and then I will get it poured into here. I've got a canning ring with a used lid, and that will just go right on top of here once I pour that in. And then I have free amendments to add to my garden in the spring, in the late spring, when I start planting again. Can you guess what these are? They're cucumbers. So this is a cucumber, probably the first one that grew, but it was in a spot where it wasn't easily seen as I was perusing the garden, and it got away from me. So when a cucumber starts to get really big, and then especially once it starts to turn a little bit yellow, it's past its prime for fresh eating, but it doesn't mean that you can't let it get to this stage where it's really developed an orange color and a thick, hard skin that you really can't even make an indentation with your fingernail. It's the perfect stage now to collect seeds to grow for next year. And since these grew in my garden prolifically, I might add, we are having an amazing cucumber season. This is a perfect cucumber to save because these seeds are now adapted to my grow zone, my microclimate, my beds, the whole thing. And then this guy was trapped between two cattle panel trellises that I have butted up against each other. So he's got an indentation on both sides where he was trapped, and he's about the same age. I can't even make a mark on him by pressing in with my fingernails. So he is also fully mature, and that means that the seeds inside are fully developed and prime for saving. And it's easy to save seeds from a cucumber. We're just gonna cut into it. Look at all those seeds in there that we get to save. And we can just scoop those out. And actually it looks like the ones on this side, I missed them. I didn't cut through any of them, so all of these are gonna be fine to save as well. And what's fallen out here from the cucumber is this very gelatinous material that holds the seeds in and protects them. And so we need to get that off before we can dry the seeds. So I'm gonna put them in this colander. I'm just gonna scoop them out with a spoon. These are beautiful seeds. They're a good size, definitely fully mature. I'll never have to buy cucumber seeds again. And these are really good cucumbers. These are the ones that I've been using for fresh eating as well as for freeze drying cucumber chips. I planted 2 kinds this year, and I think that this is the Market More. So we got all of those. And we're gonna do the same thing in here. And can you just see all that gelatinous material on the sides of each seed? That's what helps protect the seed from digestive tracts so that it can be pooped out of an animal, a bird, or whatnot, and still be viable for producing a plant. I don't need all of this cucumber seed holding material in here. Is it called the ribs, like a pepper? I don't know. But we don't need that, so I'm just gonna squeeze the seeds out. It's amazing how Mother Nature designs things to withstand even being eaten so that it can still do its job and grow cucumber plants. We're gonna do the same thing with this one. I'm gonna cut it just a little bit off center. Hands work just as well as a spoon, just to get all of the seeds out. This does make a little bit of a mess. I was planning on doing this on the patio, but again, the weather is not cooperating for that right now. And this could have sat on my counter for another day. This was picked yesterday, but we just gotta get stuff done. So we gotta keep going. This is a lot of seeds, hundreds of seeds in here. And once you have all the seeds out of the cucumber, now we need to get all of this gel off. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can just lay it out on a paper towel and let that gel dry, and then just rub the seeds in a paper towel to just pull off any of this dried gel. It'll just flake right off after, I would say, a couple of days. You can also soak these or ferment them. You can put them in water. I use a mason jar when I do that. Just for probably 2 days is perfect. The gel will break itself away from the seed, and then you can just separate it in a colander like this. The other thing you can do, and that's what I'm gonna do right now, we're just going to run some water through here, and I'm gonna push it up against the sides of the colander and see how much of that gel we can get off. I have done that in the past as well. I prefer to do it that way just because it allows me to get these seeds fully ready for drying in one afternoon, rather than putting them out on a plate and letting them dry for a couple of days and then having to get the dried gel off, and that's what we're gonna do. And now the gel is like a thick layer at the bottom of the colander. I think we've got most of it away from the seeds at this point. I have to rinse these a couple of times, and I'm not gonna worry about getting all of the seeds out of here because this is hundreds of them. And so I'm gonna rinse this gel off. And we'll rinse them again. We've got big globs of gel in here, but it's not attached to the seeds anymore. Can you see this? We've got a seed and we have the gel. These seeds no longer have gel on them. So this is super quick, super easy to do. And I'm gonna discard all of these seeds that are floating on the top of the water, and the good ones are at the bottom. They have some weight to them. They have a fully developed seed inside. So those are the ones we're gonna keep. So I'm gonna scoop out what's floating, which includes all of this gel. I hope I can get this to come through on camera. All of this gel. And we're left with perfectly good, viable seeds to dry on the bottom. We just saved ourselves 3 days of waiting for the gel to separate on its own. Seeds ready to dry. And now I'm gonna lay these out on a dehydrator tray. We're not gonna dehydrate these, but because this mesh has a stand with a top and a bottom, it's just gonna allow better airflow. So these will dry out just a little bit quicker. So we'll just spread those out. And this is years and years and years worth of seeds to grow cucumbers. And it didn't cost me a thing. Now there is still a little bit of gel, that just didn't get picked out. So I'm just gonna pick that up. It's not a big deal. You can leave that. It's not gonna hurt anything. Everything's gonna dry just fine. And we can discard the gel at that time. It'll be easy to tell what is a seed and what is not a seed. But I'm just giving it a once over just to see if there's any obvious, gel globs that I want to take out of here before we set it to dry. Oh, I dropped it. That's not a big deal. These look great. We just saved ourselves some money and a whole lot of time. because that only took a couple of minutes, and look at the result. And I'm just gonna set these aside, probably on top of my dehydrator for a few days until they're fully dry, and then we can get them packaged up for the 2026 growing season and beyond. Last night I came out here and noticed that there were a lot of wasps in my compost bin. And this morning I came out and there's even more. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of them in there. And by the way, I'm allergic. I think these are yellow jackets. If they would sit still, I could get a closer look. But they are essentially down in that hole right there. I have my EpiPen. I looked online and it said that Dawn dish soap and water will make it very difficult for them to fly, and that they also do not like essential oils. So I am going to pour 2 gallons of Dawn dish soap sudsy hot water that also has cinnamon and peppermint essential oil in it. And again, with my EpiPen right here. I don't think they're going to be very happy, but they cannot stay. I have dogs, and that's the doggy door right there. And I know these guys can be incredibly aggressive. It's just been so hot that I'm sure this compost pile has dried out quite a bit. So we're gonna pour this, we're gonna do it as fast as we can, and then we're gonna hightail it into the house, and then I will do it again at dusk tonight. So let's see how this goes. Oh, they're still flying and they're pissed. Come on, Sky, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on. I am safe in my house now, and those guys are pretty agitated, but I think you can see there is still a lot of activity out there, so I don't think that that treatment did very much, but I'm going to keep doing it until they're gone because they cannot stay. I'm not going to go out there right now or I would give you a better shot because they look incredibly agitated. You coming, Sky? Come on. Good morning. Oh, here comes Charlie. So yesterday I came out, and here comes Molly, and I was cleaning up the plants on the green stalk. I'll give you a shot at that here in just a minute. And I was throwing what I cut off the plant into the compost, and I noticed a massive problem. There were wasps building a nest inside my compost. I'm allergic. That was a big problem. So I took care of it, and I think I was successful yesterday with 3 applications, and I'm going to do 1 more application right now. But if you are struggling with wasps in a bed or compost or wherever, somewhere in the ground, this might help you out. So first of all, I was trimming my sage plants and just getting everything kind of tidied up. You can see kind of the mess I laid on the floor because I wanted to stop throwing it into the compost because of the wasps. I don't mind bees, not at all. They need to do their job just like I do. But wasps are a whole different animal. They are nasty and aggressive, and they tend to like to sting me, and I am very allergic. And here is our compost pile this morning. I did see 1 wasp flying in and out of there this morning, which is why I decided to do 1 more treatment. So this hot water mixed with Dawn dish soap with a little bit of essential oils in it. You can see it is sudsy water, 2 gallons in here. And I am just gonna pour this again, just kind of all over, down where they were. But we went from dozens and dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of wasps yesterday, to look, nothing in there today. Well, I shouldn't say nothing. There is 1 flying around in there. Oh, there's a few. But they're realizing they don't want to be in there and they're taking off again. So that's a good thing. And he's off. And that's a really good thing because I have another more pressing garden issue to deal with, and I'm going to take you along with me on that ride. I did mention last summer that I was struggling with this, but the way that I prepped the beds early last spring, like April and May, I thought I had taken care of it, or at least had gotten a pretty good handle on it. But no, the eggs survived, and I think that that's probably contributing to why my asparagus, my peppers, why a lot of my plants are struggling this year. So later, we're going to take a look at that, and I'm going to show you what has to be done. And it's not going to be easy or fun. Well, I struck out at the farmer's market. She did not have half-hots today, and the look on her face told me she may not be getting them. It has not been a good year for peppers anywhere. I'm going to try again the next couple of weeks because it's really important to me that if they do come in, I want them. They're my favorite pepper. Dehydrate them for a spice blend, roast them on the grill, peel them, and then can them in some oil. They're absolutely delicious. Cut them in strips, cut them in dices, and freeze them. So easy to add to things. They are a part sweet and part spicy pepper. They're so incredibly delicious. So high hopes for that. But to console myself, I went out to the garden and I picked a whole bunch more tomatoes, including cherry tomatoes, got a couple more cucumbers. These are coming in droves this year, so it has definitely been a good cucumber year. And I just purchased online a crinkle cut cutter. So I'm going to be making more cucumber chips soon, and we're going to do the crinkle cut. And I've got another vegetable that I'm going to be doing crinkle cut to as well. Now, these Cherokee purple tomatoes are turning out to be incredibly prolific. First time I have ever grown them. They do have a lot of cat facing. So that's where multiple blossoms fuse together. And so this is multiple tomatoes, kind of like Siamese twins. Not thrilled about that because most of them are cat-faced, although every once in a while there's one that's not. The difference, for example, this one right here. Ooh. This one is cat-faced. That's what it's called. Multiple blossoms fused together. So like this little bulb right here is one tomato. This is one tomato. This is one tomato. And they can ripen at different stages. So as you can see, this tomato right here, or this piece of the twin is not ripe, whereas this one back here, this one back here, and this one back here is ripe. So I just have to cut off the green. If I waited and left it on the vine until this was red, then this part will be rotten by then. So cat-faced tomatoes are not my favorite. However, these are lovely tomatoes. This one's nice and big. I also did get my first pick on my Kellogg's breakfast, and I did get another of my bread and salt and some more Romas down here as well. Oh, and also my first few tomatillas that were ready as well. So hopefully we'll get enough to make some more salsa verde this year. So I'm very disappointed about the half-hots not being at the farmer's market, but tomatoes are coming in droves. We're gonna get these roasted up today, just like I did at the beginning of this video, including all of these lovelies in here. We also got our cucumber seeds saved. We got our calcium powder made. And by the way, I actually used that calcium powder yesterday in a new batch of dog food that I tried out with my dogs, and I made a quadruple batch, so 4 weeks worth. And thank goodness, they love it. I think it is their favorite recipe so far. They literally gobbled it down and came begging for more, which I was surprised about because of how much calcium powder I had to put in there, but they loved it. So calcium powder comes in super handy. The beans are not ready to pull for the drying, for saving the seeds, but I did notice outside that my pole beans and my dragon tongue bush beans, I can probably pick those tomorrow. So I'm gonna do a harvest on those tomorrow. I'll probably film that for next weekend. But not a bad week. I got a ton done. Sometimes, you know, life can just get so busy, and even when your chore list is super long, if you just break it down into little pieces and get a little bit done every day, by the end of the week, you're done. And then you start over again. Thank you so much for joining me for another edition of Sunday Fun Day here at ABC Homestead, where we try to make a better choice every day for our health, our wallet, and our future. My name is Kelly, and I do hope you come back and visit again soon.